G'day, I'm Neil and my handle is Wiley11. I'm just going to put my disclaimer here. Whatever I do and say on these videos is well-intentioned and well-meaning advice. I accept no liabilities whatsoever for any disclosures. If you take some advice or act on something that I'm saying on these videos, you do so entirely at your own risk. I'm doing it based on my experience. These videos are my attempt to give back to YouTube for the help and assistance that YouTube has given me. So once again, you follow along or follow advice from these videos entirely at your own risk. Okay, and if you're not happy to do that, click this off and off you go. Because this is purely my attempt to give back to YouTube, as I said, for the help and advice that I have received out of YouTube. So this is just my little attempt to give back. If you're happy to follow along at your own risk, buckle up, sit in. Let's get into it. Now, the first issue I had about calibrating was getting the system level. And I used this beautiful little level. It's been as reliable as anything for me for a lot of years. I bought this, I think, at a $2 bin. And it's been the most reliable little level. If that bubble's in the middle, this thing's dead level. And also the one vertical is right too. So this has gone through a lot. It's got a magnetic strip which has lost its magnetism. But I don't care about that because this has been such a reliable little unit. And I've used it for a lot in trying to get things level, and it works well. So leveling up your build before you start calibrating is necessary. And on top of using this, I actually bought these, a whole bag of bubble levels. And I put a couple of these on the unit so that I could see when the unit was sitting level. And these have been worth their weight in gold. I think I paid about $5 for this whole bag. Righto, so I want to give you some footage of me struggling with calibrating the system. And look, part of that process was the problem with the Z-axis switch mount and the switches themselves. So let's start with that. So we're going to talk about the problems with the mounting switches, the terminating switches, which, well, you'll see it. I'll get into it. Oops. Look at this. This is a switch that's on a different axis. But all of these switches were the same that were supplied, and they're a completely different switch, as you can see. See this? And you can see the throw that you've got, so that if the unit comes past where the switch activates, there's a bit of give in the stalk. So these switches that they've supplied are not the switches that were intended to be used. Also, the wires run differently. So all the switches we got, hang on, I'm just going to pop the camera on. All the switches we got look like that. And all the switches they're using in the design look like that. And that's a different switch. Now, if I use that switch, you can see the mounting holes are diagonally opposed, whereas in this one, is straight through, parallel. So I would need to drill a hole through the acrylic, and drilling into acrylic is a nightmare. It's not something you want to be doing unless you absolutely got to. So what I might do is I might just replace this switch. Now obviously they've used the same, see this screw, the bolt is the same bolt, right? So they're using the same bolt. They haven't changed it out. I don't know what length of bolt, but that's what they're using. So I'm a little bit lost at the moment. I'm going to go up the electronics place It's going to cost me $10 for that probably, but it's going to cost what it's going to cost, and I have to buy one. So I've got yet another run up to the shops. I'm going to buy one of these. And then I might go back to the fasteners place while I'm up that way. It's a bit of a detour, but I'll go back to that. And Susie got like a 2.5 or a 2 mil bolt that'll go through that with a nut. Now I can already tell you what the answer to that is. He doesn't have them. He doesn't carry them that small. The smallest he carries is M3. So I've got to make some decisions. I don't think I should hold the build up for a switch. I can always come back to a switch. Okay, I think I'm going to just move past this, and I'll come back to these switches, and I'll make some decisions at the end of the build. So we've spent enough time. We spent nearly 3.5 hours fiddling with, testing, making sure these switches work, getting the cables so that they're actually sealed cables and they're not going to get covered in dust and crap and get into these contact points. Only to find out they're a different switch to the original design. Here's the correct switch here. And I think too that if we do use these, we've got the ability to bend this to increase the throw. So that'll come in, and we've still got 1/8 of an inch of throw. And I think we're going to do that because we want more throw on that as they've got it here. See, they've got extra throw here. And if that motor gets reamed down hard on the switch and keeps going, it'll go past that area, that axis. Now, the other thing I'm a bit concerned about is I've only got 3 switches, and there are definitely more than 3 points. There's no limiting. Oh, yes, there is. There's a limiting switch here, so that's a switch. There's none on this side, interestingly. There's only one on this side. There's no switch on that side to stop it if it hits this. So that's interesting. Maybe it's controlled with software that never will hit that. I don't know, but we'll find out. Probably find out the hard way. And also there's only one switch on the Y and one switch on the Z. There's no switch at the top, so nothing will stop it if it hits this top piece. I'm not sure I'm happy with that. I might have a look at that because we could splice into this circuit. Right, so that's running into that first problem of the throw not being the same kind that was in the original design that they've released. So they found a cheaper switch. They've changed things around to supply with the cheaper switch. Now the problem with that, if I can just pause this. Right, so the problem with this kind of a switch, this isn't exactly the switch they supply, but it does have the same kind of thing. And what can happen is, see this thing here? It can bend. Now what's happened with this switch is I've physically bent it. So the first problem I had was that this thing here, this trigger, was bending, and that would mean that the switch would throw in different positions. So that was my first problem. Now my second problem, well, let me tell you how I overcame that. I used these switches, and these switches have a pretty stiff trigger, and it was only a problem for me on the Z axis, right? So by using these switches, I overcame that problem. So what I needed to do straight up was change the mounting point to use this switch. So I already needed to drill into the acrylic. But the second thing that happened was as the unit came down, the Z-axis plate was held into the acrylic by a couple of adjustable screws, and it was getting hit. So it was physically being moved down the acrylic. And if you tightened those adjustable screws any tighter, you risked cracking the acrylic. It was really tight. I got it as tight as I dared, but the more I turned it, I could hear crack, 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 and I'm thinking, oh, that's going to crack it. So I got to a point where I said, no, I've got to redesign the Z-axis switch mount to accept this switch, and so that I had something underneath it to stop from being pushed down. What I came up with is I chucked a bolt into the base of the switch that would sit against the plate on the bottom. So once you adjusted the height of where the plate sat, it couldn't be pushed any further down. And that design has worked brilliantly. So let's talk about how that came about. Well, we've talked about how it came about. We only had to do this on the Z-axis. The other axis switches are all the same, right? So they've got these little flimsy bizzos, but it's not as critical for those as it is for the Z-axis. So the X1 and the Y1, they're the original switches that came with the build. Now, let's also talk about the insulation on the terminals. They just had a metal insulation piece on that, and what I had to do was I put some heat shrink over the pin so that when it came up there, it wasn't exposed. There was no metal exposed at the base of the switch, so it was completely enclosed in heat shrink once it engaged. And that's necessary because you don't want anything shorting those switches out and having it think it's in the wrong position. So if you get something drop across the terminals, then you pretty much cattywampus, because your job is going to think, oh, I'm at termination, I can't go any further down, I better go up. You know what I mean? And then it might take that as zero reference and go up in the air, and suddenly you've got this big blob of crap coming out of your extruder. So we needed to fix the switch. We needed to fix everything to do with the wiring, and we had some issues with putting the wires on the wrong pins, so that was a problem because there's 3 pins. And at one stage I had the wires on the wrong pins. I made every mistake there was to make with the switch. And these all cost time. These cost me days, and like I spent a day looking for a fault that didn't exist because I put the bloody wire on the wrong thing. I couldn't get the switch to work no matter what I did. And it took me ages to work out I had the wires in the wrong place. Now, this is all about reading the material you've got and making good decisions about what you're doing. And obviously I didn't do that, and it cost me a lot of time. So in this next part, what I'm doing is I'm testing the switches and I'm solving the problem of the terminals not being correctly sealed for moisture and for grit. So let's just go with that. And the footage is 17 minutes long, but I'm just going to give you two excerpts. It took me 17 minutes to work out why a switch wasn't working because I managed to flick the wires around onto the wrong thing. And it was 17 minutes I didn't really have at the time. But, these are the mistakes you make and you learn from them and you move forward. So this next bit of video is me testing the switches they've provided to understand the throw point and to seal up the wires. That's okay. We ran out of battery on the camera, but we've got to keep pushing forward. I'm just running out of time. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a continuity test on these switches. So what I'm going to do is set the multimeter to continuity test. Right, we're set to continuity. And we'll start with these two. Well, that's good because it's about 1/8 of an inch away. It still activates. Right, so that's working there. And what we do is we go down to the plug. I'm all a fuddle and muddle. Nope. Wrong plug. I'm all befuddled and muddled, he said. That one in there. So we're going to test these switches and we're going to call it quits. Now, what I don't like is these little bits of plastic like that. I think that's heat shrink, and I'm going to find out in half a second because I'm going to try to heat shrink that. Just give me a minute. Right. Well, let's go. Nope, not heat shrink, plastic. Okay. Not the ideal way to find out that it's not heat shrink, but it's not, it's plastic. And now it's got a hole in it. Rightio. So, what do we do now? Well, we got heat shrink. Here's some. I want some heat shrink over that. Easily. That easily goes over the back of it. 2, 4, 6 pieces. That long. That'll work for me. Let's just get 6 pieces of it out of that. See how we go. Chompy chomp. Rightio, let's give it a crack. That over that. Okay, heat shrink. Well and truly heat shrunk. Happier with a little bit of heat shrink there. Now let's go with the plastic over the top of everything. Alright, that's going to do beautiful. And we can force that plastic on. And now that's going to be beautifully locked in. Okay, so there's a solution. And back onto the... And then what we'll do is we'll double check continuity. Right. So we have a solution. Let's go with it. That one over that. See, it's little things like this. Go the extra mile, the extra yard, the extra mile. And you'll have something that lasts forever. Push it right down. There it is. Nicely done. Back onto the pin. Now these are just a signal wire, right? All that's doing is creating a circuit. You push the switch down, you got a circuit here. It doesn't matter which way that plug, like. Right, so having solved the problem with switches and whatever else, we ran into problems calibrating the Z-axis, and this is where I made the decision to replace the entire Z-axis assembly with this switch. So that switch went the way of the dodo. One of the switches was broken anyway. They're quite flimsy, and I put too much pressure on one of the switches and I broke it. And what happened was I had to replace a switch, So I ended up replacing the Z-axis switch with this one. I actually had these lying around. They were from another build, from another job. So that's what I've used. Really robust switch. And then I changed the bracket. And what you're going to see now is me running into the issue of calibration and me changing out the Z bracket with this switch. Not this one. This one keeps settling. These coasters, I think, are copping a bit of a beating. There we go, we got it. Right, so that's level and that's level. Okay, so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to bring this one here forward. As far as it'll go. And I'm going to get my other little leveler. And we're going to put this one on top and we're going to have a look at how good it is. Now we calibrated this the other day, so you can see in there the bubble is dead level this way. So I'll put it at the back. Still dead level, put it at the front. Still dead level, put it at this way. Dead level, put it this way. Dead level. Everything's level. Happy. So we calibrated for level. So what we're now saying is that I'm going to move back a bit so people can see. I think we're going up here again. Not sure what you can see there. We'll go here. Everything's going a bit cattywampus on me here. I don't know why. Just going to adjust the camera a bit. Righto, so what we're saying is that going this way everything's level and going this way everything's level. And this plate is dead because the X and the Y, the X and the Z axes, so because the Y is level, so is the Z. So this is actually leveled, this is right angled to the Z, and I've checked that this is level as well. So if I put that on there where you can see it, you'll see that on the bar it's dead level. I actually did level this all, everything here is dead level. So everything's in level, everything's square, everything's level, right there. I'm not going to move it now, that's it for leveling. We're calibrating. Now, going to get some tape and some scissors. Now this tape is the painter's tape. It's an all surface tape, masking tape, and those scissors, they're razor sharp. There is definitely heating up. We're 137. Yep, that's exactly right. So it is reading the correct temperature on that nozzle. So we can confirm 78.9 degrees there. I'm going to take this reading. It's 159 degrees, and it says on the thing 170 now. So it is reading, it is heating up, the nozzle's heating. We are getting a good reading on the temperature nozzle. So now we just got to wait and see what happens. I'm printing the test material, which is a cone. Geez, it's really high up off the... Okay, so our Z-axis is no good. We're going to abort the print. The extruder is working. You can see we've got, what's not working is our Z calibration. It's out the buggery. Oh, look at that. It's about 5 mil off the, it's just printing confetti. So we've got everything working, we've got to calibrate our Z. Our Z plane's wrong. Rightio, I need to stop it. Now there's no kill. Quick settings. Alright, I need to kill the job. When all else fails, kill the job. He and I'd be having so much fun right about now. He'd be laughing his head off going, oh mate, that ain't how you do level. You know how you do level. And I'd be saying, ah, shut the hell up and sit down. It works. Right, all good. I really miss that guy. He was a very good mate. Right, I want to just really quickly double check this wire throw. It's throwing. I can hear it throw there. Now, what I'm going to do is set this switch so that it clicks right there where it is. Right now it's not clicked on. I don't know what's going on with this. It's nearly 5 millimeters before that's throwing, and I know that I set it to that point. I know that this switch was set. I give up, I really do. I don't know what to do about shit like this. That switch has to be set correctly, and these little switches, they're just not doing the job. They're not doing the job. They're too, you know, it's just crap. These lever arms, I think, are the problem. I think if I took the lever arm off and just used a button switch with a long throw, a straight button, I'd be in a better position with this one. Because these arms are bending. The arms on the switches, this thing here, this is bullshit, right? It even moves like it's garbage. You don't rely on garbage. You can't do it. Wrong switches. I'm going to get some robust switches for that. In fact, I've got some robust switches and I'll change them out. Right now, I haven't got time for that. I've got to move. Righto, so we're going to do this again. We're going to come in here, back this screw off. Back the other screw off. I'm coming in through wiring, so it's a good job all the power's off, right? Right, screws are backed off. I'm going to push that up till I hear it go click. Oh boy, that's hot. Why would that be getting hot? In a big tangle back here. And they shouldn't be like that, but they are. Now I think possibly, there we go. I'm just going to back this one off as well. Right. Now we can drop this switch down. And we're going to wind that down until it hits. You're going to wind this down till the extruder actually hits. There it is, it's on it. It's touching there. Now we want it in level, exactly. So we're going to calibrate level again. And we're going to push the switch up until we hear it click. There it is, there. Click. Now, this is where it pays to have two people. Click. And what I want to do is lock that off real quick. I've got it really loose there at the moment. Now I'm going to double check that I've still got my clicking in the right clicky bit. Just going to go up a bit. Click. Down a bit. Click. Just touching it. Up a bit. Click. Down a bit. Click. Perfecto. Perfection. Gonna lock it off. Come into this one. I'm putting some real pressure on this. I don't want it to move. Now remember, I've got washers on the front and the back. That's as tight as I dare go with it without, I've put quite a bit of pressure on that. Rightio. Let's turn the system back on. I'm going to push home all. Well, that worked. Turn it off. Something didn't work. Something very bad happened. Something extremely bad happened. Alright, we're in diagnosis mode. What the hell happened? Well, obviously that Z went down first before it went up. So pushing home all is not a good idea. That's a software design fault. It's a cup of tea, folks, don't panic. Now, there's a couple of things about what you just saw. It was me discovering that Z-axis mount plate was moving, although I didn't realise at the time it was moving because I knew I'd set it, but it was in a different position. Now I thought that was the switch throw bending. What I didn't realise was it was the plate moving. Now the second thing you will have noticed from that, hopefully I'll be able to find this thing quickly. I can't. Is the blue tape. What happened was we had the red protective cover on our hotbed, and because the Z-axis wasn't calibrated correctly, what happened was the extruder was pushed down into it and it tore the crap out of it and scratched my hot plate. I wasn't real happy about that. You didn't actually see that. I got it on camera somewhere, but I just can't find that footage for this blooper, but it'll come up somewhere in the videos. So it's extremely important that you do your calibration exercise correctly and that you connect your printer to your computer and control it from the computer, because trying to calibrate using the calibration menu doesn't work at all, particularly if everything's in the home position and you push home again. It doesn't know immediately that everything's home. It doesn't do that check. So what it does first is it moves Z down. It should move Z up. It moves it slightly down first and then it does X and Y. It should move Z up first and then do X and Y and then do Z. And it's wrong in the software in that menu. And so if you do calibration using the internal menu, you've just got to make sure that you move that Z up before you push home all or home anything. Make sure Z's moved up first and then start calibrating using the menu. That was a big mistake because it ripped the crap out of my protective layer, and then I had to go out and buy the 3M blue tape, and I've got it here. The operative word there is somewhere. It's interesting that when I put something away, I put it away so well, I can't find it again. It was sitting right there. I don't know, maybe Leonie came through and cleaned something and decided it wasn't a good spot for it and moved it. Regardless, I've got some 3M blue tape. The marking off the good stuff, not the cheap stuff. And I've had to replace my protective barrier over my hot plate, my hotbed. So that was a consequence of poor calibration and poor programming on the part of the manufacturer. Now what you're about to see was my solution to that, where I've physically gone in and made a new plate and fixed the Z-axis calibration problem with a replacement switch, a replacement plate, and the screw going up the base of the plate. Righto, so the blue tape was exactly where I put it. I just didn't look hard enough. Sorry, Mrs. Leonie, for blaming you for cleaning my work area. It sits underneath the printer. So what this is the 3M. This is a painter's masking tape, and its number is 2093, Scotch Blue 2093. So you should be able to see that just there where my thumb is. And it's thick enough that I think you get about 5 of them across the bed. And the beauty about this is that if a section of it gets damaged, you can just replace one section instead of requiring to replace the whole thing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the 3D printer build. After the debacle with the bracket that slips and the switch that flexes, I've let another day go through the grasp, gone, and went to the shops yesterday to get a switch that doesn't slip. The closest thing they could come up with was this, which is a contact switch, which has a problem because in this switch it won't activate until it's completely depressed. Right, so there's no grey area at all with this switch. It's got contact, it's got no contact. The problem with this kind of switch is that you've got to build some kind of a bracket to hold it and then put it into the mounts. These two adjustable mounts here, so that it fits like that. So you're going to have to make a piece of acrylic with holes in it that far apart and a hole for this to mount the switch, and then those have still got to go up and down. See that? So this bracket's no longer suitable for the job. So if you're going to make a new bracket, why use that switch? And I've got these switches. This has a little bit of give, but it's got a much more robust arm on it. It's basically a much more robust switch than that. It's much more substantial. The problem is it won't fit on this bracket. It's too big for that bracket. So that bracket is no longer suitable. I'm going to swap cameras. Hey everyone, welcome back. Now this particular piece of footage comes under the heading of don't try this at home, because what I've done is I've designed this pretty rough bracket. I've cut it out, as you can see, not to square, not really to scale, not to anything. I just wanted to move forwards, so I've used a hacksaw and a drill to mould this piece of acrylic that I had lying around, right, which is basically the same width as the acrylic we got inside. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a couple of these nuts into the acrylic so that they stay there permanently, using a bit of heat and a bit of old-fashioned ingenuity. So hopefully we'll get this to happen in such a way that we don't burn the place down. So I've just got a cigarette lighter, a bolt that's longer than I need it to be, so that you can see that it's going down into the clearance. So that that nut, when I push it in with some heat on it, it'll set, and it'll set in such a way that I'll be able to wind that in and out without, it'll set square basically, so that it sets in the hole. And then I'm going to do the same on these two. I'm just going to push this down with a nut on it and make that a captive nut, and push that down into that. Alright, so that'll be a captive nut, this will be a captive nut, and there'll be a captive nut in there. So that's the plan. We want to try to get this to happen so that when we push through from the other side, we can just screw into that switch and have it completely captive and not be bothered about rubbish. As you can see, my guide holes aren't straight. They're not particularly nice, but they're going to work. All I needed to do is set it the right height and stay there, and that's what this base screw is going to be about. This is way too long, of course, this one. I've got a much shorter. See, that's going to hold it so that it can't slip down any further, and those guides are just going to be there to keep it upright. So that's how it's going to work. So that's the plan. I'm hopeful that I've already cracked this. As you can see, it's already got a big old crack in it, and it was pretty rough and ready, but I just wanted to move forward with this whole project. I'm over it. I'm over everything. So we're going to set this up. I don't know where yet, somewhere, maybe there. Come down in front of it so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to grab this with a pair of pliers. I'm going to put some heat on it with the cigarette lighter and force it in. So let's do it. The wind's not helping me at all. Righto, that'll do us. Let's have a go at that. How well is that set? Nowhere near hot enough, not even close. Not even close. It's not melting the acrylic at all. Didn't even melt the acrylic. Let's go again. Got to get it way hotter than that. The wind doesn't help. Just putting it in the flame again. Again, the wind's not helping my cause. Righto, straight in. Here we go. That's actually going in. That's alright, that's what we want. It's going in. Right, we're in. And that's burned its way down into the acrylic. That's exactly what we wanted to happen. It's made itself a nice little home there. Still too hot to touch actually. That's good. That's exactly what I wanted. Here we go. Can wind it out. Hopefully that will just stay where it is. Can wind in the actual screw that belongs in there. It's not straight. Hole's not straight. It was pretty rough, you know. I just wanted to move forwards. There it goes. It's out. I think that'll stay in there quite nicely. If I've got to, I can use a bit of crazy glue or something. Super glue we call it. You call it crazy glue. Just to hold that proud. But that'll work. It's not coming out. Let's go for another one, shall we? So we get two of them done. Got to pick the nut. The bolt's going walkabout. It's going to the floor. Here we go. Got it back. It's gone nice and cool again. Now this time we want another nut going on here. Wind him on. Now I'm deliberately winding it down further than I need it, so I've got that whole shaft going through, making sure it's setting correctly in the hole. So the idea is when you push it in, it's going to set square so that you can wind something through from the other side. That's the theory anyway. Well, let's go again. Put it down close to where it was, eh? Here we go. We've got two more of these to do and we're done. Oh, this wind is not helping my cause. Go away, wind. It was doing the right thing by me before. Now that I want to get moving, it doesn't want to do the right thing. Just going to move around this way a bit. There we go, we got it in the flame. Need to get it nice and hot. Yeah, it's gone out. Got the piece here. In she goes. don't think it's quite hot enough. So it is going, but it's only going just a fraction of the way in. I need it to go all the way in. You can see what I'm going to end up with, right? Okay, so we'll go again. Pull that out and we'll go again. I'm just looking inside that rebate where I tried to push it, and it didn't make any kind of an impression at all. We're going to have everything a lot closer. Let's get this ready, get that ready, get everything ready. Here we go, see if this wind will play nice for us. Don't heat up me pliers, I want you to heat that thing up. It's called playing with fire. Well, it's gone out real quick. Let's go. Right, so we're inside. We're probably going to set off the smoke detectors, but we'll see what happens. We don't do this inside as a rule. Don't play with fire inside. It's still a bit warm, so that's nice. Let's go. Gonna get this nice and hot. You can see what's going on, I hope. No worries, look at that, straight in. There it is. See how that's nice and proud? It's going good. It's exactly what I wanted. It's made that hole nice. Let it cool off a bit. Don't know if it'll ever come out. It's still hot. It is still hot. How good's that? That one's seated. I'm going to kill this this bolt anyway. It's no good anymore. Now the idea here is, God, I hope you saw that. See how it comes through? Just winding that off again. I'm going to push this other one on and I'm going to call that done. And that's our bracket. What happens here, the idea of this bottom one is that this will wind up from the bottom and you'll be able to set the height, and that screw won't let it go any further down. So when it pushes down, it won't push past that support. That's it. That's as far down as it'll be allowed to go. And these are just guides. They're just going to be there to hold it upright. That's all it's going to do. So there it is. That's the whole thing. Like that. Got one more of these to do. Let's get it done. Stop bragging about shit and get things done now. So here's another one of these ones. This bolt is going to hit the bin. It's going to get recycled. The middle bin. Wind him down again. I'm quite pleased that I came up with this. It's a way better design than what they had. Just going to double check that we haven't killed this. We haven't. It's still going to work. Still going to get in there. Hold on to that. Got to clean up my pliers. Here we go. Heat it up. can tell you that's the hottest part of the flame right there, so that's getting red hot. Alright, I think that should be enough. Let's go. Push it through. Come on, in you go, in you go, in you go. Look at that, straight in. Perfect. Straight in, straight where I wanted it. Perfect result. Rightio, so as that cools, that'll set. You can see what's going on there. Because it's clear, you can see exactly what happened. It's going to be too hot to touch again. But I can just wind it off. There we go. Still nice and warm too. I don't want to put these down on things that are going to still quite warm. I'm going to go back outside and put them outside. So in editing this footage of bloopers, it turns out I've got 3 hours of footage, which is too long to post as a single video. So I'm going to break it into 4 parts. So this is the end of this part, and I want you to like and subscribe to my channel, to my video, and support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com. Make good decisions, do good things, and keep on swinging at it, and you'll get there. Righto, see you for the next part in a few minutes.